Hello and welcome to The Green Load. This is episode 1, an introduction to greenwashing. Before we get started, we have a couple of things we want to mention for you for our inspiration and social media pages.
Head over to our Twitter and Instagram accounts at GreenloadPod to keep up to date with our podcast releases and learn more about greenwashing. In creating this podcast series, we've been inspired by many amazing people, including the incredible work of the documentary filmmaker Michael Moore, the weekly podcast Everyday Ethics, Aja Barber and Venetia Lamanna, who continuously call out business malpractice and greenwashing, and the Instagram at Tickover, who calls out brands through stitch activism.
This is the start of a mini-series looking at greenwashing. As we will uncover, this is not a new term, but it has recently exploded into relevance on the ethical living scene. So my first questions are, what is greenwashing? How come I'm only just hearing about it if it's clearly so important?
Greenwashing describes the use of misleading marketing claims about the environmental benefits of a product or service, which can make governments and corporations seem more sustainable and ethical than they really are. Those greenwashing often spend more time and money claiming to be green rather than investing in sustainable alternatives, and this practice is particularly prevalent in the food, fuel, fashion, electronics, and plastics industry. The term greenwashing was first coined by environmentalist J. Westerfeld in the 1980s, but its use has grown rapidly in the last decade. As consumer demand for sustainable alternatives has risen, so too have the number of greenwashing claims. Eco-friendly is trendy, and big businesses know it, but they want to capitalise on the movement without having to radically restructure their business or supply chain. But if you hadn't heard of greenwashing before, then you're certainly not alone. We conducted a survey to find out how much the general population know about greenwashing. Over a third were unable to identify the term, while more than half wanted to know how to spot greenwash marketing and how to better regulate it. Without widespread awareness, brands will continue to take advantage of genuine consumer concerns for the environment.
Okay, but what's the problem? Surely we can't tell these companies off for beginning to support sustainable practices. That would sound counterproductive to the effort of climate action to me.
So the problem is that what these firms are doing is often a substitute for legitimate action towards sustainable practices. If we take the example of a firm marketing a product as made up of 50% more natural fibres, increasing it from 2% to only 3%, consumers are being misled into believing that they are making a worthwhile decision, when perhaps there are much more sound alternatives in the market.
However, there is a balance to be found when looking into greenwashing. Much coverage of the phenomenon at this time is wholly negative. We hope to balance this narrative, since greenwashing proves that there is a growing awareness of the impact consumer products have on the planet, which is a good thing. We are at a crossroads where wider knowledge of greenwashing can help expand the positive practices of the emerging sustainable groups. The alternative has us all confused by the marketing magic, allowing the real chance for change to the better to disappear. That's where this podcast hopes to help. We look at greenwashing and ask, can it be a force for good, or will this totally kill all attempts to make consumer practices more sustainable?
And who's actually doing this? From that summary, it looks like a business practice. Is that right?
So unfortunately, this is a tactic used by many companies, but the worst offenders are the clothing, oil, mining and paper industries, which have a pretty bad track record of greenwashing. An amazing tool to use is a website called Good On You, which rates every brand we know and love based on their social responsibility.
Being eco is fashionable at the moment, and so it's easier than ever for governments, businesses and individuals to paint themselves green. For businesses especially, it's ideal as far as customer profit goes. This kind of thing is there in eco-holidays with thousands of air miles, or electric car batteries which require toxic cadmium mining, or almond milk with all the water it requires to produce. But, thankfully, individuals are waking up in their thousands to the deception, which is something that we can feel positive about. We now know that it's not enough simply to say that you're making a difference. It's only enough to make sure that, by looking beyond the obvious on the shelf, and looking into indirect impacts, that you definitely are making a difference. To help everything and everyone.
Really? I've never come across that before. I don't put a 100% organic sticker on my forehead when I meet new people.
No, You're not misrepresenting yourself as a product, but think of the actions that you take to act responsibly. Have you ever bought a brand new reusable travel mug? Did you already have a plastic one? You can inadvertently consume more in an attempt to convince yourself of your sustainable lifestyle choices. Likewise, that brand new travel mug might not be as sustainable as the brand claims that it is. It's your job as a consumer to research what you are purchasing.
Okay. Maybe the indirect impacts of my actions need to be considered a little more closely. So, hopefully in the coming episodes, you'll be able to show us how greenwashing manifests itself in these different ways.
So that's the plan. We hope to take you through greenwashing in corporations, governments and individuals, and at the end of it we hope you'll be armed with the knowledge to spot greenwashing in all its forms. We also want you to understand why a party might do this, and hopefully we'll give you the confidence to find and support parties who are genuinely pushing for environmental responsible practices.
Fantastic stuff. I look forward to navigating this problem in the coming episodes with all of you listening in. But before we go, please check out our social media at GreenloadPod. Here we post all sorts of interactive polls, insightful source materials and interesting teasers of episodes coming up. Beyond that, have a fantastic day. We hope to see you here for the next episode to watch it all unfold.